Hey, Jen.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Hey, I was thinking the other day since the warm weather has just started to hit in certain areas of the country, including ours. When you were
Right.
growing up in Abilene, did your house have air conditioning?
I did not have air conditioning until I was in high school. And then my
Really?
parents had one room. We got a room air conditioner in the one room of the house. And that was back in the day. My dad had allergies, hay fever, worse than anybody I have ever known. I mean, just awful. And he suffered through that with no air conditioning, no couldn't close the windows, you know. Uh, that was amazing when I see what we can do with indoor air quality and stuff like that now.
Yeah.
You know, he was absolutely miserable with hay fever and with
Hmm.
no way to really escape it other than going to work, but that was selling cars. So that was all
He's
outside.
outside a lot, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what room got air conditioned?
The first room that they air conditioned was a little TV room, kind of off. It was, you think of it as a sunroom or kind of a little 12 by 12 room, all windows, but it was, I don't know why they chose that one. Probably because the whole family could use it, but
Right.
my dad would sleep in there sometimes, when it got really bad.
Really?
One of my real memories I have of that house, and I know my brothers do as well, is summer nights we would sit outside and talk. We'd sit around the picnic table and talk, and you go, it was because it was so hot in we didn't think
Inside.
anything about it. We just gravitated to, but we would sit outside. I can still hear my mom's voice in the pitch black. You're
Yeah.
just out talking. It was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, something like that.
Hmm.
But it would be pitch black, sitting out in the backyard and just talking, just hearing the quietness of everybody's voice in pitch black is kind of neat. But we were out there because it was so hot in the house. We
You're kind
didn't
of waiting for
complain.
it to cool down a bit so you could go to
Hmm.
bed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I fell asleep to the sound of this old oscillating cast iron oscillating fan,
The blue
and
one?
no, the old black one. It was an old black
Okay.
one, and I have a fan identical to it. It's not the same fan, but I have one that is identical to it out in my garage. I use it in my garage, and it has the same sound. Same sound as when maybe that'd be a good video. Next week we can just bring in my fan. I'll show you
Some
my fan.
ASMR
Yeah.
of your old fan. So when I was a kid growing up in your house, I
Hmm.
do remember there would be a lot of times that we would just have the windows open still, like in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And I remember having a fan on my face during the
Yeah.
night. And it was one of those old school ones where I mean you could easily stick your finger through and
Hmm.
accidentally
Sure.
have have
It
a real
didn't kill you.
problem.
It didn't kill you, did it? No.
I no, I knew not to do that. But I was wondering, were we when I was growing up, were you waiting for a particular temperature or date in
Well,
order to
yeah.
turn
Well,
on the air conditioning?
it was usually like the 4th of July. If you could make it to the
Right.
4th of July, which is ridiculous. I mean,
It's
I've had
so
my air
ridiculous.
conditioner on for days here.
Yeah.
And back when you were small, I was fresh in the air conditioning business. I was a young technician back in that day, but I was still poor. So,
Yeah.
we still lived on a budget. I had, that was back in the day where I had aspirations of going into business for myself someday, so
Right.
we had to save our nickels and
We would
dimes.
try to not turn on the air conditioning. I was wondering if it was
Yeah.
the 1st of June or the 1st of July. I couldn't remember,
No,
but
I
I
think it was
remember
more
there
like
being a
July.
date.
And
Okay.
that's ridiculous. That is so
June is hot in
ridiculous.
Kansas.
It is hot, and calculate how much it costs to air condition a day.
Yeah.
We're talking about a couple of bucks. Seriously, a couple of bucks.
Yeah.
Was it worth $2 to be miserable all day? No,
Yeah.
it's not. And so it
Yeah.
didn't take too many years that I've turned into one of those people. I do not have screens on my windows.
Mhm.
So that means I'm really not opening. I'll open my windows a couple of times a year, just to let the wind blow through it. But given bugs and things like that, I don't open the windows here. I've turned into one of those people.
Yeah, we don't open ours
but
either.
I love it. I love it. I don't wake
Yeah.
up and my sinuses aren't swollen and my eyes aren't itchy and I'm not sticking to the bed sheets.
When you're trying to keep track of nickels and dimes,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I would say, hey,
yeah,
$2 a night times
yeah.
60 that you might have. I
I
mean,
so wish I could go back in time and pay the $2 and have my dad be in air conditioning.
yeah.
That would have been well worth it. I can remember his main remedy was contact. You know, the pill contact. These little capsules of antihistamines. And I've taken those before, and they literally put me to sleep. So compound that with it. Your only form of relief is this over-the-counter drug that makes you drowsy and sleepy. You know, that's
Yeah.
a great
And
way
then
to spend your
having
summer.
4 young boys, that's super helpful.
Exactly.
I looked up doing some like genealogy research, I looked up, I saw a census that your dad had signed and it had his address on it. It said that you were like 2 years old on the
Oh yeah.
census thing. And so I
This
looked
is
up the
something my
address.
dad. This is something my dad signed.
Yeah. And
Uh-huh.
it said that, you and your brother, your twin was 2, and then your 2 older brothers were still very young.
Oh
And,
yeah.
so I looked up the address. Dad, that house was this big.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
you guys had 4 boys in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, still looks really in good shape. Cute little house,
Yeah.
but it was a 2-bedroom house.
Yeah. And
So,
then you think of the house that you absolutely can't do without in today's world because
yeah.
we're married and have a child.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Hey, I have a few questions from YouTube channel watchers today.
Okay.
This question says, I can hear a humming on the air conditioner coming from the neighbor when I'm
Mm-hmm.
inside. So I think that she's talking about her neighbor's air conditioner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Um,
what it sounds like to
and
me.
she says, strange, her fan isn't on. Why is this? So do you know why an air conditioner might be humming or buzzing, but the fan
Yeah.
is not on?
Well, I can think of two, and one of them you'll be the hero to your next door neighbor, and the other one you'll be the bearer of really bad news. So let's go with the hero one first. If I had a neighbor and their air conditioner is sitting there, and all I hear is a humming or buzzing noise, but nothing's running, right? That's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I would let them know that what I'm hearing, go knock on the neighbor's door and ask them to check their breaker for the unit outside, because typically not typically, but one of the two things that could be humming, that could just be the controls. When it's totally quiet, you can hear a hum of the contactor, the switch that turns on the air conditioner sometimes can have a vibration to it and kind of make a humming sound. With no other fan being on, everything quiet is because the breaker is off on the inside of their house, or the disconnect is pulled, but somehow they don't have power to the air conditioner outside. And that's an easy fix, is just restoring power to the unit outside. So that's the one where you'll be the hero. You found that they had a problem and it was a cheap fix. The other reason I could think they would have just a humming sound would be they've got a bad condenser fan motor, or something related to the condenser fan motors. And what they're hearing is the humming of the compressor, or be it that fan motor, but it's not starting. It's sitting still. It's not starting up. So those could be more costly. Now, it could be something electrical, but generally it'd be something along that line. Could be a capacitor failure or something like that. But typically it's going to be related to the fan outside is not running when it should be.
So a fan motor breaker
Probably.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
I do remember, I should have you, let me see if I can do this since we're on a fancy new platform here. Dad, this is our own video with our own technician. I remember I was following Jordan out on this call once, and the customer said that it wasn't coming on. And I think that he even said that there was a hum or something. So it reminded me of this when he went out to check.
You hear how loud it is?
Yeah. See, he said, do you hear how loud it is?
So the fan's not turning. See that? Fan's not spinning at all. Trying to see if I could spin it loose. What we need to check here is capacity.
You obviously had power to the unit.
Verify that it's okay. Or if we have a fan motor issue. Yeah, the fan wasn't spinning. It's either the fan motor or the capacitor is not.
Well,
I think that's what I said.
Oh yeah, so you were able to heat, but as far as air conditioning goes, it wasn't removing the heat that the air conditioner was absorbing. So it wasn't actually, it was moving refrigerant. Everything seemed to be going okay on that front. It just was trapping the heat back in here. So you were getting lukewarm air back to your air conditioner.
Well, yeah.
Was this the first time you turned it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I said, when I got back, it was about 77. So
Mhm.
I thought, I'll turn it off.
I'd be interested to know if that noise sounds like what the lady's question was about.
Mhm.
If it's
What's
similar.
going on with it? Yeah. So I'm checking the capacitor to see if it's okay. So 5 microfarads out of 5. So it is okay. Whoops. 5 microfarads out of 5. That is okay. So now we'll check the compressor side of it. 47. So this is a 45.5, which is okay. So the capacitor seems to be okay, Roger. It looks like, what it looks like instead, though, is that the condenser fan motor needs to be replaced. So it's given it enough capacitance to get it going, but the motor itself, bearings inside of it, is kind of giving out. It's not spinning the way it needs to. When I got out here, it was completely stopped.
Okay.
What I did was I gave it a light spin on the blades.
What do you think, Dad? That sounded pretty similar. I think
Mhm. Pretty
that's
similar. It's one of the two. It's one of the two.
okay. All right. Anything else that we want to say to close this out?
Well, I would just caution you that Jordan knows what he's doing, and as far as spinning the blade, I would not recommend a homeowner doing that. It's
Right.
He knows what he's doing. He can do it without anything being damaged. A homeowner doesn't
Yeah.
have that skill, and so
Yeah. Well, and he had to check the capacitor anyway. That was just like a quick
yeah,
check to
right,
see if he could engage the fan, but he
yeah.
had the tools to actually check the capacitor, which is what you're going to want to do. So what would you recommend when they call if it's not the breaker, they need to call a service company.
Yes, and
So just make sure that they check those two things.
right. And when you go to the breaker panel, that's what I was saying. Sometimes that brings on a whole nother question. Well, gee, I open up the breaker panel. I don't do this very often. What you're looking for is one of the breakers. Typically you've got a left and a right hand bank of breakers. You're looking for one that's not quite in the same position as all the others. You're looking for the odd one out. And there's typically a scale. The breakers are numbered usually odd numbers on one side, even numbers on the other side, but they'll have many times they'll have a guide there that'll say AC, and it'll breaker number 22 and 23, 22 and 24 or something like that. But sometimes that's a help. But you're looking for that one breaker that's a little out of whack. Turn it off and then turn it back on again.
Okay.
Turn it off to reset it and then turn it back on again.
All right, good. I think that should help. Let's pull up another question here. All right, how about this one, Dad? This person is asking, I have an old school thermostat. What number, I'm assuming what temperature, do I put my air conditioner on for it to cool the house down, and then shut off automatically?
Well, that's
Do you
going to
have
be a
any-
comfort setting. That what temperature you're going to want to dial in is really up to you. We've got some customers that upper 70s, 78 or 80 to some people is cool enough. Where there's other people that it's got to be 72 or even colder. So
Right.
somewhere in that mid range. But be careful not to do a real extreme in the cold. Because what you're doing is you're telling it to run nonstop. If you
Right.
put 68 degrees in, well, it's probably going to run all the time, trying to achieve what you told it you wanted.
Yeah.
And so don't go to an extreme. Go to something moderate. But it's kind of interesting how from one season to the next, how we get used to, in the wintertime, we get used to 72 or 74 degrees in the wintertime running our furnace. Well, that can feel pretty cool to a lot of people. You kind of reacclimate to a warmer temperature, through
Yeah.
the summertime, because it's all compared to what it is outside. And so you're outside on
And
a
humidity.
day like today, it's 92. Well, guess what? 80 degrees feels pretty cool compared to 92.
Do you know, because old school thermostats, no matter what, if she sets it on a number that is achievable for the air conditioner to get to, if she sets it at 75, it's achievable for most air conditioners to get down to 75, and then it will shut off, right? Once it
Yes,
reaches that.
it will shut off.
But if she
And
sets it to 65, it's just never going to shut off.
right. That's what I was referring to. So be careful not to do some extreme. The other thing too, and she says old school thermostat can be out of calibration as well. So use good judgment there. Just because it says 75 degrees, it could be 85 degrees. It could be 72 degrees, So
Yeah.
have another thermometer that you can get a little bit of reference point to. Some folks will have the thermostat and it'll be out of calibration, and no, they think it's 72 degrees in here. No, it's not. It's 76. This is what 76 degrees is, so,
Right.
and it really doesn't make any difference, but just have a good reference point. So I would trust that kitchen thermometer over the cheap little thermometer that's on your old school thermostat as far as what
Right.
temperature you're actually maintaining.
And yeah, it's just as long as you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. That reminds me, I was listening to this podcast where this lady was talking about cooking when she moved from the US to the UK, and she couldn't figure out her stove, and she thought she would be lost forever because in the UK it's just either like 1 to 9
Oh, really?
for the oven.
Uh-huh.
She's like, but eventually you learn, you fire that baby up to 6 and
Yeah.
It cooks your chicken.
It's really cooking when you're at 7.
Yeah,
It's the same way with
exactly.
Celsius. The person ought to set my thermostat on Celsius and see if I can kind of learn
Figure it
what
out.
temperature ranges, because it's very different.
All right, one more question here. This this one made me laugh, Dad, because this was a comment that was on a YouTube short that I made. And so a YouTube short is less than 60 seconds long. And so
Mhm.
context could not really be achieved in this
Mhm.
little clip. And so in the clip, Brendan is saying he really it likes to clean ductwork before he seals it, but couldn't really get into why in less than 60 seconds. And so this person is asking a question saying, how does cleaning the interior of the ductwork make the exterior easier to seal?
Mhm.
Do you want
That's
to
That's a
answer that?
good question. That's a good question,
Mhm.
because that is one of the very unique things about the way we seal ductwork is we don't seal it on the outside. We seal it on
Right.
the inside, which is pretty cool. People think of their ductwork as something that you put tape on or
Mhm.
paint some sort of sealant on or something like that. No, we pressurize the ductwork and send a sealant through the interior of the ductwork, and it finds the leaks and plugs them up. And that's why Brendan likes doing that, cleaning out the inside of the duct before he puts the sealant in. So, yeah.
Right. Cool. Yeah. He said, I remember I was there because I was filming him. He said, you don't have to clean the ductwork before you seal it. He says it
Mhm.
just for him, it's a little bit of a quicker process. And
Yeah.
because if you take out all the dust that's on the inside, the gumminess of the sealant sticks really
Goes
good
right
to
it goes right to and
right.
certainly if the ductwork, when we say you don't have to clean it, if it were extremely dirty, I would kind
Yeah.
of insist that you do clean it. You do
Yeah.
want to clean it,
We
because
recommend it.
we want the best job possible, so,
Exactly. And that's what he says. He's like, we recommend it. Obviously, it's always just up to the customer what they want to do. But
mhm,
given all the information,
right.
we recommend doing it. But You don't have to, and the
Yeah,
sealant will
and
still do
a
its
lot
job.
of the prep work that he does on the ductwork for cleaning it is also work that we do to seal it. So it's usually a
Right.
pretty quick process, doesn't take a whole lot of time, and you'll be glad you did once it's
Right,
all sealed up.
exactly. That's the end of my questions for the day.
Oh, there's one other point we wanted to make, and
What?
that is it is summertime is right around the corner. I mean, it
Yeah.
is. We're kind of had a few days that it warmed up in the 90s, and so it really feels like summertime. So some people are still like how I used to be, and I would try and hold off and turn it on later. That's fine. I personally don't do that, but that's fine. But please do a preemptive, turn it on and make sure everything is working okay. Make sure your air
Yeah.
conditioner is just sitting there humming. You don't want your air conditioner sitting there humming on that day you finally turn it back on. That's when people are really rewarded for waiting to the last minute. Now it's really
Yeah.
hot. Do a test run.
For sure. I'm curious to know anybody who does wait for a specific date and or temperature for it to reach outside. Let me know in the comments.
And reasoning as to
with
why.
the reason why you're willing to do that to your family when it only costs
Yeah,
$2
exactly.
a night to cool.
You know,
no, I'm just joking.
That hot house cools more than just the air and the furniture. You know, you think of the
Filters.
temperament of small children, people with allergies. There's a lot of benefits to having the old air conditioner on.
All right. Well, thanks, Dad.
Very good. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.